Good morning, everybody. Okay, I suppose just to start this particular debate off, there has to be a question. Okay, so the question this morning is to what extent we prepare our host port trainees. And it's just, I suppose I can only refer to my own experience. My own experience is that I am very much about event management. So as a host port, and as Paul's alluded to, Belfast has hosted the event back in 2009, and we're hosting a tall ships fleet again next year. However, I mean, I've been to the conference now for many years, and I've dealt with vessels for probably 5 or 6 years. From my own perspective, I have a little bit of expertise, or quite a bit of expertise in terms of delivering an event, but when it comes to trainees, I'm relatively naive, and I'll be honest about that. So we also have, I guess, a number of cultural differences across Europe. And I'm going to put that into context. So really all I'm doing this morning is asking the question, how do we prepare trainees, and explaining that it's not just as simple as taking advice from vessels. So, like I say, the first slide there is the context from where we're coming from, which is that we hosted the event back in 2009, and it was a transatlantic voyage. So we had to place trainees across the Atlantic for, I think, 3 weeks. So they were at sea from Halifax to Belfast for 3 weeks. And from our perspective, we were quite nervous about that. I'll be honest, we had many sleepless nights worrying about the trainees and how much time we had to invest in preparing them. We provided them with things like sea survival training. We only had to deal with a small number of vessels because of the nature of the race. There was only a small number of vessels taking part. We took advice from SEAL Training International. And I guess it's so difficult to ask the question of so many people because you never get the same answer as to how much preparation you can provide for your trainees. Paul? So, sorry, Paul, next slide, please. Yes. So here we have Haringen, which is a lovely port. We visited Haringen this summer, and this is what the quayside looks like in Haringen. So there's no barriers, no nothing. Whenever I look at that, we have heart palpitations. Okay, so it's like we see lots of risks there. We see people falling in water. We see kids falling in water. So I'm just trying to explain that we all have different. The different cultures look at things very much in a different perspective. So Belfast would have signage, we'd have barriers. You know, we'd throw in a few stewards as well. So just to make sure that everything's nice and safe. But that's just the nature of Belfast. Like I say, Haringen do not have that concern. So they just have a more relaxed approach, I suppose, of looking at things. So you have to understand that as a host port, we all have completely different mindsets when it comes to trainees. Again, I've spoken to many other host ports who would say they're adults. They can look after themselves, you know. But we don't think like that. We worry. And that's just, I suppose, how it is. Another thing, next slide, Paul. Another thing really to think about is the cost and the opportunity cost. Now, when I say about the cost, I mean that we have a budget for putting trainees on ships. And for 2015, we have a fairly good budget for placing trainees. However, in preparing our trainees, we are spending money. Okay, so that money that we are spending on putting them through sea survival, on giving them experience on the water, on classroom-based training, all that money is getting absorbed into those trainees. That money could have been spent on putting more trainees on if we didn't do that preparation. So, for example, the money that we're spending on sea survival training, we could have placed another 10 trainees in the race next year. Next slide, Paul. The other thing that I wanted to refer to was a duty of care, and this goes back to my previous point about how different people and different ports and different cultures view risk. Okay, we very much feel as if we have a duty of care to our trainees. Now, what that means is, you know, we have an obligation to ensure that they are prepared. And now we can look at it in two ways. We can look at the legal obligation and also the moral obligation. In terms of a legal side of things, yeah, we can get the trainees to say, I will behave myself on the ship, and they can sign a little form, and they can say that they'll abide by the ship's rules, and that's fine. If something happens, we can rest easy. However, we also have a moral obligation, and we very much look at trainees from the point of view if something goes wrong. We worry. We think about what happens if something major happens at sea. One of our trainees is involved. We had a trainee presentation yesterday about trainee welfare, and they discussed lots of things that happen at sea, like bullying, exclusion, harassment, things that we never even thought about that could potentially happen at sea. We would be concerned about our trainees and the negative publicity. Something like that can have a very bad effect on your event if something happens to one of your trainees at sea. So we feel we have a moral obligation to look after them and provide that duty of care. In saying that, we like I said, we speak to SEAL Training International. We speak with our own SEAL Training organisation. We've consulted with the Irish SEAL Training Organisation, and of course we talk to the ships. But I guess the answer is always different. We still do not know what is best practice when it comes to preparing your trainees. Next slide. So this is where we're at in our crew selection for next year. We've started the process. We've had 500 people who've expressed an interest in sailing on a 2-week voyage from Belfast to Allenstown. We have now got to the stage where we are shortlisting those candidates, and it's a sort of a joint initiative between Belfast City Council and Oceania Trust Ireland. We are going to interview and select the right people for the voyage. So perhaps in other ports it's a case of they apply, they sign up, they're going to sail. We select who we think are the right people because obviously we're putting a lot of money and a lot of investing quite a bit of time in the process. So at the current stage, we now have it down to about 120 trainees, and that's the 120 trainees who will provide the backbone of the people who sail. We'll probably, hopefully, we'll be able to afford to put 100 trainees in the RIS, and then we also have just that little surplus just in case people will drop off, etc. But as you can see, the next stages are the training. So we're providing sea survival training. Some people think that as a host port, we're going well beyond the call of duty in terms of sea survival. That's just something, again, it's back to, as I said, the duty of care that we have for our trainees, having them very prepared. But in saying that, I've spoke to ship's captains who say they prefer the trainees to come on completely green, if that makes sense. They want them to come on, they want them to be naive, they want them to learn the hard way, they want them to a steep learning curve. So, I don't know. I have a ship's captain telling me, no preparation, but I have a nagging doubt that I need to be preparing these trainees. So it's as simple as that. Next slide, Paul. It's about best practice. I guess I'm here to ask the question, what is best practice when it comes to putting trainees in a RIS? Every vessel is going to be different. So whether it's a Class A or a Class D, I'm aware that a lot of the vessels will provide some sort of induction. Whenever your trainees come on board for the first evening, there's that sort of induction, and they show them the ropes, and there's a bit of health and safety and things like that. But I am completely in the dark as to how every ship will do that process differently. So I ask the question, which ship is best for my trainees? Because I don't know how much preparation goes on. Every race will be different. And again, going back to my experience of 2009, it was a transatlantic trip, so we were very nervous. 3 weeks across the Atlantic is a big undertaking, and this time around, it's not much different. I'll be honest. It's 2 weeks in the North Sea, so we still would want to prepare our trainees for a 2-week voyage. I've talked about the costs and the opportunity cost. So if I'm preparing my trainees to a large degree, someone is losing out. There's also the effect of the experience. So as a host port, do we want our trainees to go onto a vessel fully prepared? Because they don't learn that much. They go on, they kind of know what they're expecting. However, if they go on green, they learn lots. They get the full experience of being on training. And then there's also just the moral dilemma, as I explained, the duty of care and how I, as an individual, feel about my trainees and how I need to look after them. So, I guess that's the presentation. It really is just asking the question, particularly of the vessels, and I hope it gives some of the host ports a little bit more thought as to how to prepare the trainees, because it's a very difficult question. And like I say, I've been asking the question for half a dozen years at this stage, and there's still there's no best practice, or there doesn't seem to be best practice at this stage. And like I say, everything's different. So that's That's the question this morning.
Thanks very much.
Vladimir Matus, captain of the Standard. We are running this ship last 15 years. It was launched in 2000, and first years the ship was working mostly with volunteers who was building the ship, and it was a young team of young people, and that was a kind of charitable activity because we didn't charge any young people for being on board. We were just working together, preparing the ship, and we have these trainees in team from the beginning of the ship. So that was easy life. After 10 years, the situation is changing, and we are now sliding a little bit to have more and more commercial trainees, those who is paying to be on board. And this is, I think, a principal critical difference. People who is coming having the sailing on the ship as a given, as for free, they have certain expectation. But people who is paying for that, they have much higher expectations. So I will tell a little more what are the difference between two groups. So we want a team like that. We want 40 people. That's normal for the Standard. We want all them be high motivated. We use the first stage. We are talking about people who is coming for free or for the cost of daytime. We publish an announcement that everyone is welcome to join crew of Standard, and after a month we have a general meeting when everyone comes together, and we start scaring them that you're going to sail, you're going to be green, in terms of they going to be green in color. And well, we want the most beautiful students, most motivated, but they have to start here. When we have winter time, when we have a lot of work to do, when we have to do the work, and that is the time when they are learning a lot. We have plenty of time to teach them safety. We have plenty of time to teach them all the necessary skills before the ship actually go to sea. They have to make their hands dirty, that's no doubt, and they have to learn a lot. So they know the ship, and the moment when the ship is going from the port, they're already knowledgeable, they're already capable to climb up there. They already know that they are expected to live in hammocks, and if you don't accept that, the only space for you to sleep is like that. But the expectations is low, they are ready to accept what is given there. We organize it as a competition. So we had 400 applications normally, and out of 400 applications, we was able to take 3 shifts of 30 people. So 100 would finally pass. We have it all online. It was very open. It was quite an exercise on itself, but it's not the subject of this presentation. So competition and best of the best is coming for the trip, having not paid even a single euro or single cents for that. Although we were asking some money to be given to the ship's cashier, in case of something goes wrong, they travel back to Russia would be paid. So it was no risk on the ship, no risk on the trainee. When they are getting home, they are getting that money back if it didn't happen. So we are also kind of our own insurance company. The similar story how we get together the team of liaison officers in 2009. We had 160 young people, extremely well motivated, extremely well prepared. What we were doing with that team, we also start with announcement, everyone welcome to join. We had a ship to train. So when ports want to prepare trainees, really want to prepare, it might worth considering renting a ship for some time and at least show them what is a sailing ship. Because some of them first time here, what's that? So to see kind of accommodation, to see kind of rigging. So in our case, that was a challenge to scare them. So all who is not really for us, they would leave before we will find some troubles with them. So we were teaching them on deck, we were providing them lessons, we are explaining them what is sailing ship, what is sailing, and well, I'm not sure that other captains has to say, but from my point of view, it was quite successful work of liaison officers, and all the problems for the ships was solved pretty quickly. And certainly it was a bit of reward. We arranged a boat for farewell parade, and all the liaison officers were able to see their ships leaving. And actually 1/3 of liaison officers sailed as a volunteer crew to the next port. Without any financial investment from our side, they just made friends with the captain, and they received invitations from captains to join the fleet. So that's kind of pleasure thing. Yeah, please go on. A little bit extreme way of preparation. When we want really well-prepared team, we have also an opportunity to use these small boats called captain's gigs. Our organization is building those boats. We are a member of Atlantic Challenge International. We have several boats already built, and we are taking those future trainees for the big ship. We are taking them to sail on these boats. But before that, they have to build it. We also have this building program, and it's also quite an exercise. It normally takes 5 months to build such a boat. And it's not only sailing boat, it's rowing boat. But what I would like to say, sail training is not just about sailing, it's about culture of being in the water. So I'm very pleased that they have skills, not just sailing, but also rowing. They know small boats, they know much more. So this is really a top-level prepared team. Also a little bit of racing and, of course, a little bit of fun. Training on board. My vision is this full responsibility of the ship and the ship's team to teach new trainees. Whatever they have beforehand, it's not relevant. Captain must be sure that this particular trainee has full knowledge which provide full safety for him, for the crew, and for the ship. So we are providing that in any case. Whoever is coming before departure, we have our training program scheduled almost down to minutes, and the officers, they know it very well. So we have all the safety briefings, we have all the separation to the watches, we instructing them how to keep the watch duties and everything. So that is just a must. They have to be there, they have to learn, and as a captain, I cannot go to sea until my trainees are familiar with the ship, familiar with my safety procedures, until they are feeling confident. So I would say my vision is this is a really good practice. You cannot rely on someone else giving them some knowledge, and then at sea you will find that they have some ridiculous vision of safety or whatever. So that probably should stay in the hands of the ships. And these particular trainees had a real good challenge before they go for the summer journeys. They had to experience sailing in that kind of conditions. This phase, please bring back. As soon as we come to the trainees who is paying for the journey, they have expectations. And they probably collect the funding for this trip for a year or so. So they expect service. They expect that they will have fun. They expect they will have race. And that's a different expectation, and we have to consider that while working with trainees. Certainly they know that it will be some heavy work on job, but in most respects they might be expecting things like that. And we have to bring to their mind the idea that they are the crew again. What we do on the top of our usual safety training, certainly the paperwork goes very careful with all the voyage crew agreement, and then the trainees confirming that they understand what we've told, that they are in charge for all the customs and everything. So they are safe, the health is good. So all this legal stuff must be explained, written, signed. So this is just a small detail on the top of normal training program. Well, this is two basic differences, and that's my vision as a captain, what we expect of the trainees who is coming. If any more questions, this type of trainees, we're always happy to see on board. Thank you.
So, young people by definition are very unpredictable. Some of them know what they're doing, some of them don't. So dealing with them can often be, well, frustrating, I suppose is the word. A young person can go from being in a very happy mood one day to hating everything the next day. So dealing with them from the start is going to be an issue, and you have to keep that in mind when you are selecting and preparing the trainees. So when going into selecting trainees first, you've got to remember that there are different kinds of trainees. In my opinion, there are 3 types of trainees who are going to want to go on these voyages. And I've categorised them as the adventurers, the socialisers, and the coerced. So when you're selecting the trainees, you're going to get three different types. You're going to get people who are going because it's an adventurous activity or want to go because of that. You're going to get the people who want to go because they want to make new friends or they want to go with their friends. And you're going to get the people who are going because their parents have told them if they don't, they're getting chucked out of the house. So you have to keep that in mind because it's a very important thing when you are selecting them. You have to have a good balance of all three. Often the ones that you'll see the best reaction from are the coerced because they come not wanting to do it and they end up loving it. But from the start they could be the most difficult to work with. So you need to keep that in mind when you are looking at your trainee recruitment. And like Vladimir says, you also have to look at the state of mind versus people who pay to go and those who don't pay to go. Currently, I work with Ocean Youth Trust Scotland, and we have both those types of people. We have people who are funded to go through bursary schemes or through schools, and we have people who pay quite good money to go. But either way, we always ask the young people to pay something, even if it is £20 or £30, which is about €50. It's not going to make a huge impact on the costs that you have encountered organising it, but it is going to provide them with a buy-in. What I mean by that is it's going to provide them with something that they know that if they don't go or if they don't participate or if they don't do it, there's going to be some reaction come back on them. If they go for nothing and completely free, then there's nothing going to come back on them if they just decide on the day that they're too tired to come. So buy-ins are crucial when selecting the trainees. You must have some sort of buy-in when doing it. It's very good to give someone a free place, and that's wonderful, but you're not going to get the most from the young person if you do this. You also have to look at demographic mixtures when you're picking up your trainees. As Kevin said, there's many cultural differences amongst young people, and these can often lead to tension and clashes. So it's very important to look at the young people that you pick and make sure that in your head you think that the boat is going to be a good place for them to go. If there's people of different religions that are complete opposite, or people of different backgrounds that do not match, then there's a lot of potential there for conflict, and that will affect everyone else. So you have to think about that when you are selecting them. Now, when you're preparing them, it's very important to do what we call a pre-voyage preparation session. And that's going, and it's letting people know what will happen on the boats, what will be expected of you from the start, and it also gives them the opportunity to get to know each other. Kevin mentioned that he's going to send his crew on the sea survival courses. And that, while it has a practical aspect of letting the young people get to know what happens in the worst situation, it's all very good, but touch wood, and in all probability, they're probably not going to use the skills that they learn there. It's good to have them, but what that course actually does is it lets the young people mix with each other and get to know each other before the voyage. And that not only lets them make new friends and not feel as awkward on the voyage, but also lets you have a quick view before the voyage of how the culture is going to be on board the boat. So meeting up with the crews beforehand is a big part of the preparation session. You do not want to have 40 or 50 young people going onto one tall ship who have never met each other before in their lives. Some form of meeting each other beforehand for that size of group is what you need in order to get the best out of the group. Setting clear expectations is a must from the start. Young people need boundaries. They need to know what is expected of them, and they need to know from the beginning what they must do. If they go on thinking there's going to be no rules and no expectations, then you're just going to have young people sleeping in their bunks all day, and they're just going for the experience of sailing. If you set from the start what you expect and what will happen, then they will know from the start what's expected of them. Crew contracts are a great way of doing this, and by that I don't mean a written contract, I mean a verbal contract building session where you go through with each person and get them to decide what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. We do something called Super Crew, where we draw a nice stick figure of a person, and around it in green pen we write the things that make a super crew, that make the most amazing sail training crew member. And then we write in red pen around it what makes a bad sail training crew member. And that actually subconsciously gets them to think about it, and it gets them to agree with what you're doing, because they have come up with the ideas themselves. Well, you know what's going to come out of that, and you can put them in the right direction. It puts them in the mindset that they have made the agreement. So it means that they will follow, that they're more likely to follow it from the beginning if they've had an input in making it. The other thing is having clear contacts. If you have a department of 6 or 7 people working on this, do not just say, email me at crewrecruitment@belfastcity.org or something like that. Have a clear name contact that they can deal with and that they know. Dealing with a faceless entity is not good for anyone, especially not for young people, because they will just get bored and they'll just leave it. So clear contacts is a definite must. Also, being realistic. Let them know that they're probably going to go from hell. We're going to go from and to hell in a handcart, basically, on board that boat. It is going to be hard. It is going to be tough. Don't let them go thinking they're going on holiday. Let them know what it's going to be like from the beginning, because if you don't, it'll just end badly, both for you and for the young people. So setting clear expectations and letting them know what is expected of them is a must. Basically, dealing with young people is a minefield when looking at this, and these are only a brief outline of how to prepare them and how to look at them. But you have to remember, they are young people. They're not adults yet. Some of them might be, but most of them will be under 18 at the moment. And it's important to look at building contracts with them from the outset to make sure that they know what they're getting into. Okay, Doc?
Thank you very much, Robbie. Terrific.